Roll. Hi, this is Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top questions and struggles, and I share what to eat, how to move, and how to change your mindset so that you can get the energy and the vitality that you want, need, and deserve in this second and better half. And today I'm answering this reader question. So if you've ever wondered, am I working out right for my body type? This is your question. This is your podcast. So here's what came in and what transpired. So there was a little backstory for the person who asked this. Thought that she'd been trying everything. Anybody been there? I've tried everything and nothing works. And just a little gentle, said with respect comment back to that for you, a question about whether you've tried everything sequentially, like in the right order, one thing at a time, so that you were actually testing what works and what doesn't work, and you can point exactly to that one thing. So if you go way back in your mind's eye, and I know you may have blocked this from your memory, but in 7th or 8th grade, when we all had to wear the goggles, when we least wanted to because we wanted to look cute, and we had to be lab partners with a guy that we had the crush on, and that made the goggles even worse. But when we were back there, standing around doing all those experiments, do you remember that the way we did the experiments was such that we tested one variable at a time? And we made sure that it worked or it didn't work, and then we had to do the write-up. But the point is, if you've tried everything, but you kind of tried everything randomly, or you tried everything at once, some of those things may actually be the things that work for you. So I'm going to encourage you to go back and just try one at a time, and see what happens. And this may get you started. So what actually does your body type have to do with it? And I'm speaking to you if you're in perimenopause, you're in postmenopause, and I would say menopause as well, except menopause is like a blip, right? You've hit that 12 months where you've had no cycle and you're there, and then you're done. So you're either in perimenopause really, or you're in menopause, or we could call that all phases of menopause. This is for you because it's probably that then or now something happened and suddenly what you were doing didn't work. And even when you knew that, okay, this has happened to me before, but I know how to get myself back on track, that's not working. That thing that you could always go to, that knowledge that I could always get back on with a specific way I ate or a specific way I exercised, or maybe the two together, isn't working anymore. And that's where the question is coming up. So I want to tell you that it's a lot of things. It's not any one thing, but probably most of all, I'm going to come back to again and again. Right now, it's hormones, right? It's that your hormones are changing, and they're changing the effect of everything on you. They're changing the effect of some foods that you've probably eaten for decades that no longer sit very well with your gut, because your hormones and your gut health are intertwined. It's changing the way you exercise or the results that you're getting from your exercise. You may be feeling like you're exhausted doing the same thing that you always have been doing and enjoyed, but it's just not working. Maybe you're also gaining weight, or you're not able to sleep anymore, and you used to sleep really great when you were really active. So any of those things could be as a result of menopause or some state of it. But I want to talk specifically about body type and how that does affect the way that you work out. And the challenge is that 10 or 20 years ago, if you're in menopause right now or perimenopause right before, 10 or 20 years ago, you may have easily been able to tell me that you were an ectomorph, a mesomorph, and I'll describe these in a second so you'll know, or an endomorph. But when you go through menopause, you sometimes don't recognize yourself anymore. You're not that same body type. You're feeling like, wait a minute, it's under there somewhere. I know it is. And we need to kind of identify, okay, what's my body type when I'm not cycling through all these changes? And we still want to defer a little bit to who we were, because that is your body type. And girlfriend, you can get back there, okay? Or let me say it a better way. You're not going back there because you never want to look out the back window at roadkill, right? We want to look forward, but you can feel better than ever. You can have the energy and the vitality that you want so long as you don't do the same thing you did back then to get yourself there, because that won't work. That ship sailed. The bus left. Goodbye. So we've got to just do a new strategy. So let's talk about this. An ectomorph. So I'm going to give you ectomorph, endomorph, and mesomorph. And you're going to say, okay, that one's most me. Even though you might feel like, I'm having a hard time. I don't know if I'm this one or this one. You're probably 51% that you're this. Okay, so go with that. That's your predominant. All right, so an ectomorph, you're very linear, straight up and down. You know, you don't have a lot of shape. You don't have a lot of curves. You're very lean. Probably it's been easy for you to be lean, maybe up until this point. This may not be true at this moment in your life, but you've been pretty lean and very, it's harder for you to put on weight, so you were in smaller sizes, kind of straight up and down. That's you. Okay. So on the lighter side as well of weight. So you were kind of, if anything, you were more underweight than normal weight or overweight. All right. That would kind of describe you best. So if you're an ectomorph, then we're going to the opposite direction. You're my Marilyn Monroe girl. You're more of an hourglass shape. And you're a curvy girl. You're a little softer and a little fluffier. Okay, so think of Marilyn literally. And nobody would have called her skinny, right? And yet nobody would have called her muscular. That's you if you're a curvy girl. Now, you may be thinking, well, wait a minute, I can't find my waistline anymore. I'm not that curvy girl. I'm not that hourglass. But if that was you, she's still in there. So sit with me. We're going to give you credit for that one, okay? So curvy girls, you know who you are. Then the last is mesomorph, and that, use the M to remind you that stands for more muscular. So if you are more athletic, you're more muscular, and by that, you tone and define like really quickly, fairly easily. Now, I got to tell you, that may not be true at this moment in time. It may feel like, wait, I used to tone up. I used to see all this muscle definition. Now I've got this little layer of, it's a little soft there, right? It's not the same muscle tone that I used to have. So that's okay. We need to manipulate what you do so that we manipulate the hormones positively, and we can also look at what else can you be doing, not just with your exercise, but with your lifestyle habits, your sleep. How are you prioritizing that? How are you prioritizing dealing with stress? So even though it may not go away, we're in the middle of a lot of stuff right now. I think we can all agree, but if you can laugh about it, you can have a sense of humor about it, you can still connect with people that you love about it, you can literally talk to friends who are in the same spot. You are definitely not alone. Everybody in the world is going through this with you. And if you can remember some of those things to help you get through it, then, the stressful times that we're in are going to be there, but it's our coping skills. How are we doing with those coping skills that can positively impact how your stress ends up sitting with you, okay? So things to remember, that we've got tools in our tool bag, but I want to keep coming back to, okay, so we know you're an endomorph, you're an ectomorph, you're a mesomorph. All right, then what do I do with that information? So here's the truth about the best way that you'll respond to exercise. And specifically, I'm going to talk most about strength training, because that's how you're and I, from here on out, I'm not just talking right now in this moment in perimenopause or menopause, but I'm talking about until we're done. Now, from now on, we're going to really need to factor in what happens when we strength train, because that's going to have the biggest positive impact on our body's shape, on our size, on our body composition, meaning how much fat and how much lean muscle, because the only other component is bone. But through exercise, we can affect our body composition. Percent fat hopefully goes down, or if you don't need to lose weight, stays right here, and your lean muscle goes up. Almost in all cases. So we want it to stabilize for sure. We don't want to lose any, but going up for a lot of us is certainly going to be one of the best things that we can do. So here's how we work out optimally for your body type. So if you're an ectomorph, you need to put on more muscle, because if you've already been very linear, very lean, kind of the lean gal all the way through, you could eat anything but still didn't matter, right? That's okay, but still probably you're noticing you've got some belly fat issues, because that tends to happen. You're probably still very linear, and yet you still have that, because we all notice it in ourselves, even if no one else notices for you. We still want to add some lean muscle mass so that we overall decrease your percent body fat. You will struggle to put on that lean muscle mass. It's harder for you because it always has been. You're going to need to do what we call a bulk building protocol. Now, some of you are going to hear this and you're going to want to go back and slap your high school PE teacher, because that was the best science we had at the time, but we were all taught a bulk building protocol. 3 sets of 10. Anybody remember? High school gym, right? And then college too, potentially. My early years of college, that still was the protocol. It's kind of like 3 sets of 10. That's what everybody did, unless you were a bodybuilder, of course, and you did 6 sets of everything, and it was crazy. But 3 sets of 10 is a bulk building protocol. So if anybody thinks back or has negative feelings about strength training and is afraid that they're going to bulk up because they always did, potentially it was because you were doing back then a bulk building protocol. You don't have to do that anymore. We know so many better ways to get better results in less time. Certainly not have to do that one specifically. So you want that one, sisters. If you're an ectomorph, you're more linear, not really a lot of curves, not a lot of body fat on you, and you need to put on some lean muscle mass because you want to see some tone, and or we want to keep you strong. Because if you're looking frail now in your 50s or your early 60s, imagine what's going to happen in your 70s and your 80s. Nobody is just holding that muscle on you. It's leaving easier. Then we keep it, and definitely then we gain it. So you're going to do that 3 times 10 if you're an ectomorph, and you want to have a little bit more protein than the next person, because protein is the building block, provides it, of muscle. So definitely after you work out, you're going to want to have a high protein meal. But also those of you that have a hard time gaining lean muscle may want to have a exercise snack as well, and have it be full of protein. So something that may be protein and or fat, and you need the extra calories. You want that extra weight, specifically kind of bookending your workout, and that will help you gain mass. So those of us who have aging parents, who are getting more frail and weaker, that would be good protocol for them. And I know it's hard sometimes with appetite. They don't have one. But eating the right foods, right? Not crackers and cheese and sugar. But that's a whole nother podcast. Okay, so that's you. If you're an ectomorph, I'm going to go on to the endomorph. So you curvy girls, what we want to make sure that we're doing for you is we don't want you to get that bulk building protocol. We want you to develop some lean muscle mass, and we really want you to go heavier. So we don't start anybody else heavy at the beginning, not at all. So you do have to progress. So ultimately you'll start with more repetitions, decrease them as you increase the weight again. But we want you to do, if you can, safely. So your shoulders, your elbows, your knees, and your hips will allow for you to do it. We want you to do heavier than you can lift 10. So we want 10 or fewer repetitions. So sometimes that means picking up a weight not necessarily terribly heavy, but going super slow. So if you'll imagine this, just imagine I was doing a chest press. So I'm pushing out and then bringing it back, and I'm pushing out, not going terribly fast, but I'm really not going very slow. What I want you to do if you're trying to use a heavier weight or reach fatigue is just go slower, because that weight that's doable for your joints without getting injured will be still safe, but it will be really fatiguing those muscles, and we need to overload them really well. So if you're an endomorph, we have to just make those muscles, come on, pay attention. And we don't want you to get bulky, because you already are a curvy girl, you have a little bit more fat. But if we can bump up your lean muscle, we call it muscular hypertrophy. So bump your muscle, your lean muscle up, that'll help you burn some of the fat. So be less of a curvy girl, all right? And yet still have the proportions. Nothing will change your body shape positively as far as exercise goes like strength training will. Think of that. If you take out, you do a lot of walking, and I'm doing a lot of walking right now too. I'm probably little too much sun down here, but we can't change our body shape with that. So if you walk or you run or you bike ride or you swim, you may be a smaller version of yourself, but you will have the exact same shape. So you'll have the same problem areas. You'll have the same place you carry weight. You will do less changing of your proportions. So if you really want a more balanced proportion, in addition to living longer, being more independent as you live longer, and still being able to carry your own tray in the cafeteria when you're in your 90s, you need strength training. Nothing's going to help you more than that. And that's going to help you enjoy those other activities, golf and walking and gardening and all the other things. So mesomorph, you are the easiest, all right? But I want to recap first. So those endomorphs, what are you going to do? Bulk building, 3 times 10, and a little bit more protein pre and post. If you are an endomorph, you're a curvy girl, you want to start, if you're not already lifting weights, with a lighter weight. This is going to take a few weeks, if not months. So a couple weeks at one weight and high repetitions, dropping the weight so you can do fewer repetitions, or increasing the weight, so you can do fewer repetitions, and then ultimately increasing the weight so you can do fewer than 10 repetitions or go slower so that you can. That's what you want to do if you're a curvy girl. Muscular women, so you respond pretty quickly to exercise. You see tone and definition, or you always have. That's still in you. So part of that is probably genetic. We can't necessarily, and there's no reason to restructure that. We just want to play into it, because what we're doing is play into your strengths, right? So I know a lot of people always used to say, okay, let's just play, strengthen our weaknesses, and that's, what kind of fun is that, right? Let's just play into our strengths, and it makes life a whole lot easier, correct? So ectomorph is ECTO, and then morph, MORPH. Endomorph is ENDO, morph, and mesomorph is MESO, morph. There you go. So spelling that out for somebody's request. So muscular types, you respond to everything. So you can have the most fun, get the most variety. So you can go more repetitions with a lighter weight. You can then the next week, or even the next workout, you can go a little bit heavier and fewer repetitions. You can do some of that mid-range, that 3 times 10, but you don't want to do much of it, because you're going to respond really well. So if you start doing that too much, that will be when you probably, as a female, if you're kind of hesitating about lifting weights because you don't want to look bulky, back away from that. Do very few repetitions because you can't, you're doing a heavier weight, and do lighter weights with greater repetitions, and go back and forth. Even within the same week. So one workout, lighter weight, more reps. The other workout, heavier, fewer reps. And you can also just use your schedule. So sometimes that's some of the best ways to do getting your variety, let your schedule dictate. When you are crazy busy, like those of us who need to work out, we need to do our intense exercise, strength training, and interval training early in the day. So ladies, this is for you. So less so if you're a guy, but for men or for women, you want to make sure that you're catering to your hormones, specifically cortisol. And that means we want high intensity exercise early in the day. Light exercise later in the day is absolutely fine. Go for a little walk, go for yoga, but no, what's my heart rate? How far am I going? What's my pace? It's not that kind. Later in the day, the purpose is to bring you down, chill you out, calm you down so you can get to sleep, stay asleep, and not wake too early. Anybody want to sign up for that program? Right? So that's exactly what you're after. So muscular women, you respond really well. Just don't get stuck. Every once in a while you can do a 3 sets of 10, but that's really not in your best interest. So probably doing the up and the down and playing with all kinds of protocols in between. So in our stronger programs, Stronger 1 is on the outside right now. That's the one that's open for enrollment. We call that one basic training. So if you're not familiar with protocols, and protocols specifically that help with hormone balance, that will help you as a female in midlife get to optimal exercise and energy, as well as the results you want, not feel miserable, exhausted, and tired while you're doing it. Because, the truth is, that's a really crazy thing to do. Think that we should be miserable, be punishing ourselves during workouts or struggling to get them done, and then suddenly we're going to wake up and feel good and more fit because we've gone through that. That's actually nuts. Right? And so for women in midlife, we're much more prone to high cortisol levels, fatigue if we drive ourselves that way, and it's an all-encompassing kind of fatigue. So we get stress from exercise just the way we get it from being in the middle of a virus or a crisis, and depending on how much that's affecting your life and changing things for you. I know we're all a little tired, we're all a little bored. That's less stress than, say, if you've really incurred some, work life stress or financial changes, or you really are, wanting and needing to see family members and can't get to them because of, travel and those types of things. So if you're struggling with those kinds of things, take a good look at what kind of exercise you're doing right now, because you don't want to be doing the same thing you would be doing if everything were just perfect and sunny blue skies all day and bluebirds singing. You can do a lot more physically because you don't have the other stressors. But during this time, where we really want to be careful, we're bumping up our metabolism, not weakening it. We want to be in that sweet spot for exercise. So has a lot to do with our hormones. For females who are, having estrogen go down, cortisol goes up. So you want to pay attention to, is that happening for me? Have you noticed a difference in that you may have suddenly put on 10 pounds? That's really a common denominator. I went through that myself in 2019 and had a lot of stressors, but I was also exercising heavily. And yet I say that to you like that because most of us think if we exercise more, then surely we will have to be skinny. We will have to lose weight. But the truth is, when you're in midlife, that will backfire big time. So nobody tries to put on 10 or 12 pounds while they're training for an Ironman endurance event. They want to be lighter, trust me. And that's not what happened. So I was in a perfect storm with multiple stressors. And if you want to hear the story, you'll hear a bit of it in the TED Talk. I will put the link to that below the show notes so that you can get it. But flipping50.com/TED, TEDx is where you can listen to the 14 and some seconds TED Talk about why everything a woman in menopause learned about exercise may be a lie, because what you learned 20 and 30 years ago potentially is not true. And we know so much more now that if you're still living that, thinking that, operating that way, you may be struggling. So there's a better answer, and it is not more exercise, it's less. So it can actually work in your favor. So yes, hormones and body type come into play, but remember that there are more than should you just lift weights, should you just do cardio. There are dozens of ways that you can lift weights. So it's specifically lifting weights the correct way, the way that maybe in studies, women who were in menopause were used in the science, featured as the subjects. Because really, you're not a man, you're not a mini man, and you're not a 20 or a 30-year-old female with the same hormones as they have either. So we need to exercise in the way that's right for us at this moment that we're in right now. And you can look and feel as good as you did when you were 30. And some of you may be thinking, that wasn't all that great. So maybe you can look and feel better than when you were 30. How would that be? So living at 50, feeling or looking better than 30, I buy that one. So things to think about there are, what are you doing now for your cardio? Are you strength training? So make sure that you get started, and then you're adjusting the protocol that you're doing so that it is the right fit for you. So if you're listening and you are a fitness professional or a health coach, stay tuned. So training clients how to do this and how to exercise based on what's happening to their hormones right now and based on what might be backfiring for them right now is exactly what we train you to do with the Flipping 50 Fitness Specialist. And you can learn more about that at flipping50.com/specialist. And it's a perfect time to get started. 42 million of us are in menopause. 6 million more women go into or go start menopause every day. That's a lot of women looking for help and solutions to something that suddenly isn't working anymore. So if you're not doing a strength training program and you're watching right now or listening and you want to get started, if it happens to be June of 2020, we close the doors July 1st, and Stronger One is a 12-week program you can get started with right now. I'll put the link in the show notes. It's flipping50, all spelled out, .com/get stronger. And I hope to see you there. If you have questions like the one I answered today, I'd love for you to put them below the show notes or below this link, whether you're on Instagram or you're on YouTube or you're following us in iTunes and listening while you're walking. I know a lot of you are, so thanks for giving us a shout. You can put your question there, and I'd love it if you'd leave a rating for us in iTunes because it really helps spread the word. What are you waiting for? Let's start flipping 50 today.